This is the Exodus Racing XR1, the latest sim racing cockpit from the guys at simrigs.com. The XR1 is a very slick, strong and easy to build cockpit that will suit a lot of home users, and with the addition of available custom graphics kits, its slick aesthetic is transformed into a potent statement piece, making this especially suited to businesses, professional drivers and sim centers, or just anybody who likes to have a personalized simulator. A big thank you to simrigs.com and my local stockist RaceKraft for sending me this XR1 for review. They actually sent me everything that's attached to this XR1 except for that shifter which belongs to me. As always, this video is going to cover all of my own thoughts, and although both Simrigs and RaceKraft were asking for feedback while I shot the video, I made it very clear that I would not be holding back from sharing everything that I found with you guys, and they were both completely fine with that. Anyways, let's get started. This is the XR1 that I spent about 2 hours assembling with my friend Yujun. I was sent the XR1 cockpit itself, the Exodus Racing Aero seat, as well as the optional shifter mount and the integrated monitor stand. Simrigs.com also offer an integrated triple monitor stand, which looks really nice, but I haven't had any hands-on experience with yet. It's tricky to do something unique in the aluminium cockpit space, but Simrigs.com really nailed it. Most profile cockpits look quite boxy, but between the swept back wheel mounting uprights and the curved design to the aluminium plates that hold the rig together, the look of the XR1 has a flow to it that looks and feels really nice. Simrigs.com also includes some blue silicone channel covers which are soft and easy to install, and overall I think they match the overall aesthetic quite well, even though personally I'm not a fan of channel covers myself. Still, it's a nice touch and it does give you some options in terms of cable management. I was really impressed by the fact that there is not a single generic 90-degree angle bracket in its construction, and consequently, it's really easy to assemble. Take this rear cross member for example. It's one aluminium bracket held in place by 4 bolts that are secured into the tapped ends of the aluminium profiles. And if we compare this to what a lot of competitors do, they use an aluminium profile to connect the left and the right, which is fine, but to connect this profile, you need 4 angle brackets. You need 8 T-nuts. You need 8 bolts, and you also need 8 washers as well. So this system I think is a lot simpler, it's faster to assemble, I think it looks better as well. On the topic of tapped profiles, every single profile in the kit was tapped, but also deburred, chamfered and cleaned of all cutting debris. I found it amusing that the wheelbase uprights were also tapped on both ends, even though they don't need to be. These angled wheelbase uprights give a lot of leg clearance for getting in and out of the cockpit, and they're held in place by these oversized aluminium plates, which have a lot of engagement on the profiles and form a really rigid connection, and I've been really impressed with the build quality of this cockpit. The wheel deck has slotted mounting plates on either end, which mount easily even if the uprights aren't lined up perfectly. You can see my uprights are actually mounted at different heights, which was my mistake. I didn't double check the alignment of the uprights when I secured the mounting plates. Nonetheless, the wheel plate mounts fine and the slots give complete freedom for adjustment. On the topic of installation, Simrigs.com include a really handy installation animation on their product page, which helps to familiarize you with the overall layout of the rig, as well as how everything comes together. But the animation doesn't account for gravity, so assembling the rig doesn't look quite as effortless as in the video. There is a pre-drilled wheel deck available with compatibility for most wheelbases, but Simrigs.com sent me this Simagic Alpha Mini with its own mounting plates for review, so be sure to subscribe to see that video when it releases. The seat mounting solution is really cool. This might be the only profile cockpit on the market that offers various seat installation heights. There's 5 different heights available to mount the seat profiles onto, and if your rig is raised, you can even flip the brackets upside down and mount the seat below the main frame of the cockpit. I do want to point out that I installed these brackets wrong when I filmed this part. The plates should connect to the cockpit with the 2 bolts mounted alongside rather than atop each other. If I paid closer attention to the assembly video, I wouldn't have made this mistake. The pedal tray is a nice design. It's aluminium profile mounted to these slotted side brackets, so it's extremely rigid and there is easy adjustment to fit every pedal set no matter the mounting hole pattern, so long as they bolt from the top, which is most of them. These are V&M light pedals, which I am reviewing and will have a video out soon, and a quick spoiler, they're really good. Notably, lower end pedals like these Logitechs do actually mount from underneath. And these can still be mounted onto this cockpit. You just need a trip to the hardware store to get some of these brackets to be able to bolt it from underneath. Or take the opportunity to upgrade to nicer pedals. The mounting brackets allow height adjustment of the pedals, but the adjustment range is relatively small, so you won't be able to get the pedals especially high, but I am comfortable with them at their highest setting. The optional shifter arm mounts via two plates that sandwich the profile, and you can actually lengthen or shorten the shifter arm by changing how deeply the plates engage the profile. In terms of compatibility, I tested this using my 3D printed shifter mount. I designed this around a track racer profile, and it's a really intimate fit, including little extensions that engage the slots of the profile, and this slipped straight onto the XR1 shifter mount without any issues. I always think compatibility is a big plus. There are a number of different seats offered by Exodus Racing, and I was sent an Aero seat, which is a blend between upright GT and reclined formula posture. In practice, the seating position is like a low-slung, reclined GT position. It's comfortable and quite wide, so it can accommodate people of all sizes, and the Alcantara cover is removable and washable, which is a big plus. It's super lightweight and easy to install, but consider getting extra tall mounting brackets, because with these regular brackets, I'm restricted to the uppermost mounting holes, otherwise the butt of the seat actually extends below the brackets and will hit anything that's underneath there. The seat is strong, and I had no trouble when I had it installed on the motion rig with the intensity turned up to 10. And now onto what I think is the most interesting aspect of this cockpit. It's the custom graphics kits. So the use of oversized aluminium brackets does allow a lot of real estate to apply decorative decals. And there are a couple of standard options on the website, but there's also a design service to fully customize the design to your spec. So if you're a business that wants to advertise your services, or a professional racing driver with an existing livery, or just someone at home who wants a fully customized rig, the design service can custom make these graphics for you. So I was sent this simagic branded decals, but on the website, the standard colors actually look pretty cool. They remind me a lot of the Power Rangers. And I think particularly if you have multiple rigs, for instance, if you're a sim center, or if you're a business that wants to have side-by-side rigs, having multiple rigs distinguished by color, I think is a really cool option. I had some help from my friend Eugene to apply the graphics to the XR1, and it definitely helped having an extra pair of hands, but I think doing it solo is also possible, because when we had to adjust and reapply a decal, the material and the adhesive allowed this with no issues. The presence of the rig has completely changed with the graphics kit. It's no longer the understated and subtle cockpit it once was. It now has a lot of character, and you can choose what character it has by tailoring the graphic design. Simrigs.com, who sent me this cockpit, are also the Australian distributors for simagic, so they sent me this simagic design. Alright, so we've gone over the way the XR1 looks and also its unique design features. The next question is, how does it drive? And the answer is very well. So unsurprisingly, it is an aluminium profile cockpit and it's extremely solid. So I've got the direct drive wheelbase, I've also got some 200 kilogram load cell pedals, and I can stand on it with absolute confidence. Nothing deflects. I filmed the cockpit while I was using it, and there is just no movement at all. Overall, I think it's a very strong and very competent system. That being said, it is not without its issues, and I definitely did encounter a couple of little hiccups along the way, which we'll go through now. If you have a look at my driving position, I would definitely say that my arms are a little bit outstretched, and this wheel deck is actually maxed out towards me. I would really appreciate if the plates that the wheel deck mounted onto the uprights were a little bit longer, just to bring this a little bit closer. This is not going to be an issue for anyone that uses a regular upright seat, which simrigs.com do offer, but with this Aero seat, with its deep recline, it does bring the shoulders back, and the wheel does need to come closer to me than the current setup allows. We can work around this issue by moving the entire upright assembly back on the rig, but I intentionally mounted mine right at the front because that's how the XR1 appears in all of its promotional material, and I think that's how the rig looks best. Another solution would be to add a shaft extension onto the wheelbase, which Simagic do offer, so at least the solution is a straightforward one. The aero seat overall is quite comfortable, but I think the backrest is a touch short because you'll see that the top of the backrest actually sits underneath my head rather than behind it. I'm 173 centimeters tall, or 5'8" in the old money, and anyone that's taller than me will have their heads sitting above the backrest with no neck support at all. And with that in mind, I would say that I'm about the maximum height that this seat can comfortably accommodate. Also, the grommet in the seat base for the crutch strap was oddly loose, which doesn't affect its function. I, in fact, only use a 4-point harness anyway, but it was odd to see. The pedal tray design is really solid and easy to adjust. I do wish the brackets were a bit longer though, so it could be raised just a touch more. But like the wheel deck, I think the issue is magnified by the reclined position of the aero seat, which pushes the ergonomic bounds of the XR1. A traditional GT seat would bring the shoulders forward and the feet down and work perfectly. The heel plate that I received actually had a small bit of damage. It really stood out to me because everything on this cockpit came so well packaged and protected, but the heel plate came in a separate box with very little protection. And this corner has a small bit of impact damage, which isn't a big deal. I think 3 seconds with a Sharpie and nobody would ever notice. But when everything else was so well packaged, it kind of stood out to me how the heel plate was unusually bare. Also, the design of the heel plate includes these fingers that extend forwards to bolt onto a second piece of aluminium profile, and it limits how far left I can mount the clutch. I like my clutch way out left, like here on my personal rig, but that heel plate mounting extension means my pedals are generally more to the right than I prefer. Back to the aero seat, it's super wide and the thigh bolsters are almost as wide as the cockpit itself. So when it came to mount the shifter arm, I just couldn't get it on when the seat was mounted in the center. What I had to do was mount the seat way over to the right in order for the shifter to mount. And this actually cancelled out the problem I had mounting the pedals. With the pedals and the seat pushed to the right, I just had to slide the steering wheel a bit off center as well, and now everything lines up perfectly. I like that the steering wheel mounts on the XR1 can be mounted off center. If I had a side mount like this SimCore unit or this Track Racer mount, the steering wheel is locked dead center of the rig, and troubleshooting the left-right mounting problems I encountered would be a lot more difficult. The integrated monitor stand works really well. It's very sturdy, but there's no vertical adjustment in the mount itself, which means if you want to adjust the height of your monitor, you're going to have to do it down here where it bolts onto the uprights. And since these uprights are slanted, any adjustment down here is actually going to affect how far the monitor is from the driver. So you make an adjustment here and you'll have to compensate by adjusting up here as well. And it does slow the initial setup down, but the trade-off is that it simplifies the bracketry, and that helps the cockpit look a lot more slick than its competitors. And for that reason, I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. And finally, in my last video, I highlighted how I couldn't fit a motion system to this rig because this plate got in the way of where the mounting kit for the Sigma Integral DK2 would mount. That's because I was very stubborn about keeping these uprights and the plate right at the front of the frame, because again, that's how it's advertised, and I think that's how the cockpit looks best. But if you actually have a look here, there's a lot of room behind the seat mount where we could actually shift the pedals, the uprights, and the seat backwards, which gives plenty of real estate here and at the front of the rig to actually fit a motion system. So there is a lot of flexibility, provided that you are flexible with the way that you build the cockpit as well. All right, let's go over some final thoughts on the Exodus Racing XR1 from simrigs.com. I really like it. I think it's a really solid product and I've really enjoyed using it over the last couple of weeks. It is on loan from Simrigs and RaceKraft, and my hope is that they're going to let me keep it a bit longer because I've really enjoyed working with it, and I think it'll be a really useful test bed for some of the reviews that I need to work on for the next couple of months. I do want to point out that this is an early production run of the cockpit, so when Derek sent it to me, he pointed out a couple of issues that he's already pushing out fixes for. And he asked me for feedback throughout, which I did. So I expect by the time that you guys see this video, a lot of the stuff that I complained about is probably going to be addressed already. But yeah, I do want to start with the boxes. So I received 4 boxes in total. The cockpit itself comes in 2 boxes. So the main chassis is all in one gigantic box, which is about 30 kilograms. So you should probably get some help lifting it up some stairs. And that contains the entire chassis except the heel plate, which is a standard part, but comes in a separate box. I think they just couldn't fit it into the one cardboard box. The optional shifter mount and the integrated monitor stand came in their own boxes, which makes sense because they are optional accessories. And I touched on this in the main video, but everything is so well packaged that it really stood out that the heel plate was quite bare in its box, and mine did get a little bit damaged on its way to me, which at first I thought it was, a bit disappointing, but then when I actually filmed the damaged portion to put into the video, I was surprised to see that it was a really tiny chip. And I think that when I was unboxing, I was just so laser focused on inspecting things that I kind of blew it out of proportion. So yeah, look, I would like to see the heel plate protected a little bit more in shipping, and Derek already said that he's onto that. Now, assembly. I thought it was really straightforward. I have put together a few cockpits in my time, and the simplified bracketry of the XR1 is really a pleasure to assemble. There's just so much fewer parts and everything lined up, and also the way that the pedal tray and the wheelbase have slotted mounting points makes them really forgiving in terms of aligning the profiles. I know with my personal cockpit, you need to get the uprights aligned within a millimeter. Everything needs to be dead square, otherwise it just doesn't bolt together. But with this one, you can be out by a full centimeter like I was, and everything still bolts together just fine. Not that you should be sloppy when you assemble things, but the fact that it is forgiving, I think, is definitely a plus. It's a really solid rig. So it's got, at the moment, a Simagic Alpha Mini and the V&M light pedals. So 10 Newton meters of torque on the wheelbase and a 200 kilo load cell on the brake. And I could max out the torque, I could stand on those brakes, no issues with strength whatsoever. It's a really solid cockpit. I think that it would do just fine under motion as well. I didn't have a chance to test this one because I didn't want to take it apart and reassemble it to fit the motion plates on. I think it looks really good. So my aesthetic definitely matches the look of the cockpit before the vinyls went on. I really like just that clean, almost blank plating. And the logo design, I think, is just really slick, really understated, very much my style. But with the graphics kits, you really can make it look however you want. And so, it's a bit louder than I personally would have in my home. But I think for the purposes, which is, to promote Simagic, I think it's doing a really good job. The vinyl kits were really easy to apply. When I had to sort of unpeel and reapply them, there was no issues there. And Derek actually let me know that seat wraps are on the horizon. So, you'll actually be able to get the plain back of the seat covered in graphics of whatever you like as well. So that's going to be a really good option, again, for businesses, for sim centers. Now, the aero seat, I think this is an interesting one because it's a quality seat. It's very solid. I had no issues with it when I had it on my motion rig, but the width is, it's quite extreme, which caters for all body types, but it does mean that the shifter mount doesn't go on unless you mount everything off center, which I don't mind at all. This rig can cater to that, no problem. I'm very comfortable with the seating position as it is. But yeah, it did take a little bit of problem solving. So if you do want a shifter mount, just be mindful that, yeah, you're gonna have to mount things off center, otherwise you just won't get things lined up. Also, the backrest on the aero seat is quite short, which I think is possibly a bit of an oversight because I'm not the tallest guy around. I'm 173 centimeters, and that headrest only just gets to the back of my head. So if you're taller than me, I think look into other seats in the simrigs.com portfolio. Also, because of that recline position, the limited adjustability for the wheelbase and for the pedal position does mean that the aero seat, I don't think, is the best match to the XR1. You can get around it with like a shaft extension, but the seating position, you're going to be, at least in my case, fully maxed out in the reach of the wheelbase and the pedal height. And I do prefer to be somewhere in the middle, just to be sure that you can adjust a bit this way or that way to get your ergonomics perfect. So yeah, I would say that the aero seat and the XR1 cockpit may not be the best match. I think the XR1 definitely is more of a GT upright seating position cockpit, which honestly most cockpits are, and probably most of you guys would prefer that seating position anyway. In my experience, the Formula seating positions, they introduce a lot of compromises, and I'm just a sucker for punishment, and I like having a formula rig. You can buy the XR1 today from simrigs.com for 899 Australian dollars, and if you're local to me in Western Australia, RaceKraft actually keep them in stock, which is really handy. I think at that price, it presents fair value. I would definitely call this a premium product. The way that it's packaged, the way that it assembles, the way that it drives, all of it is really top notch, and I was really happy to see that. I do want to point out that whether you get it from Simrigs or RaceKraft, I don't make any money from that at all. My only role here is to test it out and make YouTube content for you guys. Of course, big thanks to Simrigs and RaceKraft for sending me the cockpit for review. I am really appreciative of the opportunity because my YouTube channel is still quite young. And if you're watching and you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so because I do have a lot of content coming and I really want to get my message out there to as many people as possible. But yes, certainly please leave a comment, any thoughts on the video. If you want to see the, the unboxing, which didn't make the final cut. And stay tuned. I do want to point out that this video took a little bit longer to come out because there were some maintenance issues in the studio, but I am getting around that. So the next few videos should be coming out a little bit sooner. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys really soon. Thank you.